Welcome to another episode of LSVT Global's podcast, Think Big and Loud, where we share inspiring stories, expert insights, and engaging conversations, all designed to empower and uplift the lives of individuals with neurological conditions and those who love and support them. My name is Beth Peterson, and I'll be your host for the show. And today we're talking about what LSVT Big and LSVT Loud can look like in the life of a young child. So I'm joined by Erica Vitek, an LSVT Big certified occupational therapist, and Jessica Czajka-Glisch, the mother of Wes, who has completed 2 summers of LSVT Big and LSVT Loud. So we get to hear from both the clinical and family perspective on adapting these programs for children. So how to make the therapy meaningful and engaging, supporting gains in both movement and communication that carry over into everyday life. So I'm excited to hear their insights. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. So Erica, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. And so can you start and just open with a brief description of what LSVT Big and LSVT Loud are for Parkinson's, and then your experience in delivering LSVT Big and the Parkinson's population?
Thanks for having me, Beth. Very happy to be here and excited to share all about LSVT Big and Loud with everyone and my experience. And I've had a lot of it. I have been doing LSVT Big in the clinic since 2009. So quite a long time. And I've actually been a member of the faculty since 2013. So I am very entrenched in it in my clinic work. I work in the clinic full time as well. I see people with Parkinson's, as you mentioned. So when we dig into what that looks like, LSVT Big being utilizing this evidence-based, intensive, amplitude-based type large movements for individuals with Parkinson's, as they tend to move in a more small manner or with more of a shuffling steps or a stooped posture, and utilizing big movements to retrain their system to begin to get that more of that sensory motor mismatch corrected, where they maybe don't even realize that they have that poor posture, those small steps. And we use these big movements to come out of those positions, and we practice it in a way that promotes neuroplasticity, meaning high repetition, high intensity of sessions, 4 times a week for 4 weeks. And that intensity really can try to iron out some of that mismatch and get that person to internally cue themselves to move in a bigger way, to help them really not just move in a bigger way, but function better, safer, prevent falls, be able to do things and stay independent for themselves. And when we think about LSVT Loud, it's such a nice little combination of the same principles, the same protocol. And in fact, LSVT Loud obviously developed even before LSVT Big, but the encouragement and facilitation of loud vocalizations for people with Parkinson's who tend to have more of a softer voice, and facilitating, again, that mismatch of they might not feel like they sound soft, but yet other people around them can't hear or understand them as easily in their communication. And so helps them to communicate better. Also has a spread of effects for facial expression and potentially lots of other things cognitively and emotionally for those patients. So that is kind of my experience and what the program is. And now we have really started to think about using this more for kids, definitely LSVT Loud, since there's training for individuals that are pediatric therapists to be trained in doing this. But I have dabbled in it now, and I'm excited to tell you about my experience with Wes.
Well, great. Thank you for that great introduction. I think that's a nice framework to get us started. And then Jessica, I'd love to hear from you. How did LSVT Big and LSVT Loud first come onto your radar for Wes? And so I know he was preschool aged, and so just to give the audience some framework for when he was starting. And then what were your initial thoughts or hesitations about trying these programs?
So our pediatrician actually sent me a my chart message and was like, there's a therapist who's looking for kids with Down syndrome to try this LSVT Big and Loud program. It's going to be kind of a lot. If you think that you would be interested in trying this, I think that it would be something that Wesley could really benefit from. And my husband and I, any type of therapy that we can give Wesley, we try to do. And so we were like, sure. I am a teacher, so we had time to do it. And it just was like, when can we fit it into the schedule to start? Because we want him to be able to do as many things as he can do. And at the time, he wasn't doing speech, but he was doing OT and PT once a week, just like outpatient. And we see the benefits of the weekly sessions, but what if he went every day for this extended amount of time? How fast could he learn things or do more things? Especially the speech part, because we had stopped doing speech. He started at like a year old, and we stopped doing it when he started 2 because he didn't have much benefit from it. When we did the LSVT Big and Loud the first time, he had just turned, he was like 4 and 2 months old, and he was pretty much nonverbal. He had like 2 words that he said and not very many sounds. So you should hear him now. He doesn't stop talking. But pediatrician kind of suggested it to us, and my husband and I were just like, you know what? We don't have anything to lose from him trying it, so let's just try.
Oh, I love that. Well, that's great. I'm also glad to hear that it was referred by your pediatrician. So I'm just love that it's on their radar to try, even though, as Erica mentioned, it's not as well known yet for LSVT Big. And I'm so glad that you guys jumped on it, because it sounds like he's had a really great result in both sides of it. Yeah. And then, so Erica, I'll come back to you. What made you think of Wesley as a potential candidate for LSVT Big back in 2024?
Yeah, so Beth, that was kind of an interesting story. So in 2021 or so, I actually was working with, a mom had reached out to me about her teenager. She had actually heard of LSVT Big and Loud and was seeking us out for therapy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never worked with a teenager, a child, but I had obviously known about the training for LSVT Loud for kids. And I'm an OT, so I was thinking, well, I can probably with a teenager apply these principles, right? And mom was like, I'm really excited about this. I really want to do this. So that was in 2021. And the therapy just went so well. Mom was so excited about it. And from then forward, I made it a mission to seek out the pediatricians. And one of those pediatricians is Wes's pediatricians. But I was seeking out the pediatricians in the area to say, hey, we can offer this. We would love for you to suggest some patients that you think might benefit from an intensive or more prolonged therapy program. And so that was how Wes got to me. Like Jessica said, the pediatrician was like, there's a therapist looking for someone to try this with. And so it was really more like the referral was handed to me, and then I was able to assess Wes and see where he was at. But it was very clear right from the beginning when I met Jessica and her family, and how motivated they are for Wes to improve is absolutely incredible. Jessica's kept in touch with me over the time. When can Wes get in again? Let's keep this up. And as you'll see with our conversation today, that we have seen Wes a couple times already. But really just going off of what Jessica said is the traditional therapy had been going on for so long. And that really is what it looks like for most kids, is they get the 1 time a week. Maybe they aren't getting it at school anymore. They're just getting the outpatient therapy. And I really wanted to really give this a shot to see if we could just give a huge burst of functional gain, which it was incredible as we talk about what Wes was able to accomplish. So exciting. And Jessica and her husband have lots of functional goals for Wes. So it was very easy to shape our treatments around that, which was really
Great. So so you're the catalyst for getting the pediatricians on board. So I like seeing this kind of full circle moment. You say, I want the referrals. He reaches out to a good candidate. You get a referral. That's great. I'm glad to see the system working so well. And then Jessica, Erica was mentioning that you had some functional goals for Wes. So before you started LSVT Big and LSVT Loud with him, what were some of the challenges that you were noticing in his movement and communication?
So, well, like I said before, for speech, I think he said like 2 words at the time. Good was one, and up. And he had a couple other sounds like the D sound and maybe one other sound, only like 4 sounds that he would consistently make. Otherwise, it just like noises and crying. So speech, we were just like anything, like, kid, give us some consistency, even if it was mimicking facial expressions, that kind of stuff. The goal for that was, what can we get out of him sound wise? And then movement, he had just started walking when he was like 3.5. So we were looking for navigation over, around objects, any type of walking fast so that he wouldn't fall, even towards running. We were looking at kicking, pulling, just trunk movement, reaching with both hands for things opposite across his body, pulling. We worked on cap twisting just for him to be functionally be able to open things. The second session he did last summer, we worked on using those adaptive bring back scissors so that when he went to school, he could try to use scissors like the other kids. Holding markers and pencils correctly. It was whatever we could think of to get him to a place where he could do more at school, I think is our biggest thing. We want him to be able to, and I don't want to say that he doesn't fit in, but be able to do as much at school as he can that fits in with everybody else. And so to practice all of those things before school and have him at least be aware of how he could do them before he got there would be helpful to him.
Sounds great. So an overarching functional goal is so that he can participate well in school. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Great. And then, so Erica, what were the specific goals that you and with the LSVT Loud team, so the whole therapy team, set for Wesley's movement and his voice based on the family's wishes and desires for him?
So like Jessica said, we really were a lot focused on his mobility related goals. So the kicking, running, and jumping. Those were big. Gross mobility, fun playing mobility. And also one of the big ones too was safety with the stairs. His bedroom was upstairs. And so just even trying to keep up with his sisters to go upstairs and such, and just being a little safer with it too, so that Jessica and her husband could feel a little more confident with that. So even just going from seeing mostly adults, that's pretty much my entire caseload, to kids, it's like, got to be a different safe with kids. So Wesley was very excited about things and doing things, and just went for it. So there was a whole different safety kind of thing going on there. But so then besides the gross motor functional things, we definitely were working on more of the fine motor aspect. And really in our first intensive, we were a lot more focused on just being able to squeeze things, open his sippy cup, things like that, or even just grabbing snacks with his fingers. And my wonderful colleagues here that are pediatric OTs regularly just gave me lots of great ideas, and utilizing even a little ice cube tray for him to grab snacks out of to work on the 2-point grasp, and just like fun things like that. And we more started off with those things with our first intensive, and then with our second intensive, we got into more what Jessica was saying, school skills and things like that. And then for vocalizations, the main things with vocalizations, as far as my loud colleague with working with Wes, was really a lot related to imitating sounds, like kind of like Jessica was saying, just trying to get even a little bit more sounds out of him, but also just the communication ability to pronounce at least some level of words so that other people in his family, parents and siblings, and hopefully friends, could also understand him a little better. So just getting a little bit more of those, what my colleague would call word approximations, since I'm not a speech therapist, but just kind of like pulling that all together with what she really worked on with him as well.
Great. Well, thank you. And I'm going to keep to you and to get your perspective, and then I'll switch to Jessica for her perspective. But so if you think of like a typical session with Wes, what did that look like, and how are you able to make it fun for a preschooler while still staying true to LSVT protocol?
Yes, it was definitely tricky. We have an awesome toy room here where I could pick really almost anything from that toy room with the help of my pediatric colleagues who were amazing, both PTs and OTs, giving me lots of different ideas. Kind of to even start off with that is my physical therapist colleague was really great in suggesting that Wes not wear his braces on his feet and do the session barefoot, which was awesome. And because that really significantly elevated our work on his balance and proprioception. So that was awesome. So we always started off our session with, I would have West either sit on initially a more stable surface, like a little kid chair, and we would do floor to ceiling and the side to side reach with different toys that I could get interest from him with. Noise making toys was a big one for Wes, a ball with something that jingled in it, or we also did a lot of spinny toys. He really loved to spin. We'd spin the toys. And so I would facilitate where those things were located, or do some hand over hand type things. So with, for example, the floor to ceiling exercise, holding the ball with him, big hands, let's touch the floor over your head, or we might do a little modified game of head, shoulders, knees, and toes, or something like that, just to get him to touch different parts. And then again, like I mentioned, the reaching, crossing midline. And then we would progress that more from just the stability surface to more of either a bolster or a therapy ball, like a peanut ball. And Jessica and I would work really well together. She was outstanding in helping me kind of keep the toys contained to the area we needed to be in, but also even supporting Wes, because initially, balance-wise, Wes did not have a ton of trunk control, but that progressed, honestly, I think, pretty quickly. And maybe Jessica can speak to that too, with some of the benefits he really had, as we talk about all the awesome positive list of things that I have that he accomplished during his time, but things like that. And then also during the session, we used some singing. So he really liked Itsy Bitsy Spider. So we would use that during some of the stepping exercises, or we would sing Wheels on the Bus together. And Wes got used to somewhat of the routine of the session, which I think helped somewhat. He knew what was coming next a little bit, and we could really get some reps in that way. But when he would get tired of the reps, or he would get a little distracted, we would have to switch it up. We couldn't maybe just do all the reps or do the exact order. Sometimes we had to switch things up if he needed a little bit of a redirection or something. Well, you still could get everything in. It just maybe wasn't always in the exact same order, because he was only 4 years old. So it was a little tricky sometimes, but he was an awesome participant. We used a lot of toys also that Jessica would bring from home that he really loved. So things that would make noise. He had a cactus that would echo everything we would say, and not just Wes, but me too. But it was fun. It was good times. And Wes was very high energy, and we just, his family support from Jessica, especially because she attended almost all the sessions, whereas some sisters and dad attended sometimes, but Jessica really was the primary driver of his partnership with me.
It sounds like an amazing partnership with you and the family. So Jessica, if you want to touch on that too, I'd love to hear your side, what the LSVT Big and LSVT Loud sessions looked like from your perspective as a mom, and then what you think that Wes was enjoying most during the sessions.
I think after the first session, I was like, oh God, we should not come back here. Just because I was like, Wesley, you're not doing any of the things. Like, you know how to do therapy. You've been doing therapy forever. But it was that learning curve of, we know he's not going to continually follow maybe the order that it is. So we just have to switch things up. A lot that trunk control thing, we probably after the second week of him being in the LSVT program, my parents have a pool and we're swimming, and he uses a life jacket, but he was holding himself up much better in the pool on his own, just from the repetition of doing those exercises from during the program. Mm-hmm. And we were like, wow, he's not like, we don't have to hold him up so much in the pool. He's holding himself. Even my parents were like, hey, look what he's doing. And I was like, I know, I think it's because this therapy we're doing. Yeah. But yeah, it was a lot of just figuring him out. And there were times where he would just lay on the floor, and Erica was like, all right, we're moving on to something else. We'll come back to that later. And maybe we didn't even come back to it later, but then we would get it in at home. So having the list of just like that continual list that Erica gave us at home with the binder, where we could check everything off. And at home, I don't think we even did it in the order necessarily all the time, because he didn't always want to cooperate or do it either, but we would at least try to get as many in as we can, and to try to just get him to participate in as many of the activities as we could. So just keeping him on board was the key. An engagement with the 4-year-old, who I would say mentally at that point, he was more around like a 2-year-old. So it was challenging, because even there were times we would run out the door and we're like, no, but he's running. Yay.
It's funny. Do you think that he enjoyed the therapy sessions or aspects of it?
Yes. I think he, again, because he's been doing therapy so long, maybe not enjoyed, but like just goes along with it. He's like, oh, I've been doing this. I just got to do this. Speech, probably not so much. And I think that's because the environment was just, we're in an office. He was sitting in a chair and he's like trying to play more. And she was trying to get him to make sounds. At first, we were just doing these ahs, and he was looking at her. I don't know what you want me to do here, lady. And then I'm doing it, and then he's laughing because he would hold out a microphone object and make Jody do it, and then he would make me do it. And we're like, Wesley's turn, and he would just not do it. We're like, there's his personality coming through. He's like, haha, I want you guys to do it, and I'm not doing that.
I win, yes.
And that cactus was. That was actually a good speech tool because he, even around our house, takes that thing and he yells into it and it makes whatever sound. So then now he's doing it again and he was like making sounds into it, hearing it back and keeping going. So we just had to figure out how Wesley wanted to do LSVT BIG.
Oh, that's really great. When you mentioned the trunk control, I was wondering if there's any other moments during therapy, either one of them where you thought, wow, this is a huge change, either in how he moved or his voice or communication.
The stairs was definitely another one because I think there was a day I came in and I was like, Erica, this morning he just went upstairs on his own and he was using both feet. He was supposed to. He was holding on to the railing with both hands. And I caught him halfway up and then I stood at the bottom of the steps and I was like, don't go up there. Just watch what he's doing. Don't intervene. And he did it. And then he got to the top and he sat down and scooted on his butt back down. I was like, come on, man, you know how to go down now. We practiced this. But he was probably tired.
Wow, that's huge. That's really great. I'm sure that is hard as the parent, like, oh, gotta let him go, but I'm not used to this yet. And so that sounds like a really great milestone that he was making there. So thanks for sharing that. And then I wanted to touch on the combination with big and loud. So Erica, I'll start with you for this one. So Wesley was receiving LSVT big and LSVT loud during the same month. So in 2024 and 2025. So what do you think were some of the advantages or even challenges of him receiving both treatments during the same month in both of those years?
So Beth, that's the tradition we do here at our clinic. Even for our adults, we have them go through the big and the loud the same month. And we wanted to try that with the kids because we find such benefit with adults because we're following that same protocol and that same intensity, neuroplasticity principles, be big, be loud, and we try to reinforce that with each other. And so with Wes, I think it was really good because actually I feel like, and maybe Jessica would agree with this too, is that sometimes even though he would do what she's saying in speech, he just would sit there and not repeat. He would do it in my session. All of a sudden he'd be like, or he would like do the actual thing in my session, or we'd be in the stairwell practicing stairs and it was very echoey in there. And he would say the sounds in there, everything that Jody would want. And I would be like, gosh, I wish Jody was in here so she could hear all of this because it was absolutely incredible what he would do. Or we would use, sensory tubes, I believe they're called, right? The pulley sensory tubes. And we would do rock and reach with those where I would have him pull and I would have him pull from different sides so we could get both the rock and the reach deal with his arms. And then we would pause between reps and I would go, in one end and then Wes would go in the other end. So I feel like a lot of times that really helped. And then Jody then could use some of those similar toys to try to really produce that in LSVT loud. So I really think because of the similar principles, it really does work so well. Some of the challenges, I'm sure, is the long sessions, right? Is that by the time we do 2 hours combined, sometimes by the time Wes got to the second session, there was sometimes some fatigue or a little more behaviors, but we do it where one day Wes would see me first and then Jody, and the next day we would switch and see Jody first and then me, and then we would switch again the next day and then switch. So each day of the week we had that flexibility in our schedules to do that so that Wes wouldn't always be tired for me or always be tired for speech. So that I feel like that worked out really well.
It's great. I was just thinking along the lines of how you were coordinating with the speech therapy team. So it sounds like you did that alternating time slot. And then I don't know if did you share some themes or cues or home practice ideas so that the programs were connected to Wes and his family well?
I think we took Jessica's lead a lot on that too, for carrying that over to home, because she always did bring things that Wes enjoyed, so we could connect that. There were things we had in the clinic here that he had similarly at home as well, where we could connect the toy really with the goal. That was really the key, and which is hard for me, being more of an adult therapist, is the play aspect. That took a lot for me to like reframe and even learn, and I have more to learn with that. But it's hard because with adults, they understand what you want them to do, and you can convince them to do things because it's going to help them functionally. I couldn't convince Wes to do anything unless it involved a toy. And that's hard. That is really hard work. It's exhausting because you feel, I've been a therapist for nearly 25 years, but it's a totally different thing when you're an adult therapist trying to do this. So I do think that helping my pediatric team realize the benefits of these intensives is one of my next goals. And it's going to be a really big step forward, I think, for getting this program up and running even more improved, because I feel like a pediatric therapist just has another whole view of looking at a kiddo that they don't have when they look at an adult. So I just think there's going to be such a great jumping off point from here to really get this going with even more therapists that will get trained and be interested.
Great. Well, thanks, Erica. And Jessica, I wanted to get your perspective. So from the family perspective, what was it like for you and your family to manage those two intensive programs close together? So in terms of energy or scheduling, motivation, what was that like?
That it was initially, when he started, the 2 hours was, I think he was like, I'm done with this, because his therapies before would be a half hour to 45 minutes at most. And so when we got there, he's done with whatever session we had first, and he's like, all right, I'm out the door. Because even that was an hour long, and or 55 minutes, because we would take a 5-minute transition. But he'd be like, all right, I'm done. And then he's like, wait, I got to do this for another hour. And for us, we were like, wait, he's going to do this? We have to manage this another hour? So it was at first, I think, hard for all of us, and just adapting that for him. Maybe if in the future for pediatric wise, if it was a half hour with one and a half hour with another, I think that might work better for somebody like Wes, or even if it's 45 minutes and 45 minutes, just like a little less time, because you fit a lot into a session, but they get so tired more quickly. And so maybe slicing down the time frame would be helpful, but we made it work. And the intensity part was okay for my family, because I am a teacher and I have the summer off, and my husband is a process server, so he makes up his own hours. So we have the flexibility in our schedule. Last summer, my cousin Paula has a daughter with Down syndrome, and she had her daughter participate, and it was a lot harder for her. She's a single mom, and they live probably a half hour away from the clinic that Erica works out of. So for her to be there for the 2 hours, and she had her other kids with her, she had to work from the waiting room and the office, and she saw a lot of benefits. But she was like, if there were other times of the day or something else that could be, if it was a little less time for her, it would be easier. So I think it works for somebody in my position, where I have the time in the summer and my husband does, but it's definitely not for everybody, because not everybody can do that every day for 4 weeks.
That makes sense. Yep. That is intense, especially it's intense with the 1 hour, and then doing the 2 hours obviously doubles that intensity too. So it's cool that it worked well, and you really want to get to this finale of how he did. So what differences did you notice in Wesley after his first summer, and then even comparing that to his second summer, both movement and communication?
It's so hard. There's been so many milestones in between there, but I emailed Erica one time randomly and sent her a video. I was like, look what he's doing. I think it was jumping. He was standing in the middle of our living room, and or the kitchen, and he's jumping. That was something we worked on with him. He'd get 1 foot off the floor. He'd be on the trampoline holding on to the bar and still get 1 foot off the floor. He was just straight up in the middle of the kitchen, holding on to nothing, jumping. And I was like, we are jumping. Yes, I can see air under your feet. So that just, I think at the end of the first one, the swimming pool thing was big, and being able to hold himself up more in there. And then the stairs was probably one of the other big thing that he could just, after the 4 weeks, since then we can't get him off the stairs. He's going up and down the stairs all day long, getting into mischief and all kinds of things up there. And then speech wise, there were days where he'd be in the back of the car, we'd be driving somewhere, and all of a sudden he'd just go, ah, and we're like, that's what Jody was trying to get you to do. Why couldn't you do that during speech class there? After last summer, the biggest thing they noticed at school, because he was in 4K and then now he was in 5K. The educational assistants that worked with him noticed we worked on him pulling up his own pants and being able to be more functional at school. So him using the scissors and being able to hold the markers and the pencils the correct way. Even him eating his snacks one at a time with the single or the 2 pincher grip. They noticed him doing those things at school. And the special education teacher would email me and be like, oh, he's doing these things. And in the back of my head, I was like, oh, that's a big and loud thing.
Well, that's great. It sounds like he's made a lot of great progress across both summers. And it's cool that you notice it as the mom, but also people that maybe aren't as familiar with how much therapy he's getting, that intensive dosage, that they're seeing it too and sharing it with you. Well, that's great. And then I guess, Erica, I'll turn it to you then. Clinically, what did you observe between 2024 and 2025 and just his overall progress for LSVT Loud and LSVT Big?
I remember Jessica telling me, oh my gosh, he's crawling out of the crib now. Oh my gosh, he's reaching the TV. Oh my gosh, he's reaching things on the counter. And I was like, I'm so sorry. But that was what we were going for. And she was happy about it. It caused more havoc to some degree.
What have you done?
Exactly. I was like, oh no, he's crawling out of the crib. But he definitely, the whole floating thing, I remember Jessica being really excited about the swimming. But also, I have to say, one of the other super exciting things that Jessica told me after was that he sat on the rolly stool for his school pictures with no one hanging onto him for the first time. And she was like shocked that he sat there, he kept his balance. And I was so excited about that because those are obviously the things that we want to see. Those are the really important, super cool things that a kid his age should be able to do. And it's so exciting to see growth in that. Mm-hmm. And I would say that the big thing between, if we're looking at the 2 years, I feel like Wes's ability, at least, or really from Jessica's perspective too, we were focused a lot more on just basic hand function during the first summer. But by the second summer, we were really more focused on getting ready for school and the grip and the writing and the scissors. And so I feel like that was the progression of just being able to grab something or squeeze a washcloth or open his water bottle sippy cup, all the way to now actually using a marker or using scissors, I think was a pretty cool progression. And even though it was still an emerging thing, when you use scissors every single day, 4 times a week for 4 weeks, and we're trying to even just cut a little bit of paper, it definitely gets in there, right? And like Jessica said, sometimes he'll do it at school and she'll be like, that was that big and loud, right? He'll do it. And that's what we want to see, those aha moments or those moments of, wow, it's actually happening in real life, not just in the clinic, right? But what was cool for his handwriting was we would use dry erase markers. I made these laminated things with the letters of his name. So I did W's and we did 5 W's every day. E's and we did 5 E's every day. And S, we did 5 S's every day. And I did do a lot of hand over hand. And then we would write his whole name, W-E-S. And Wes would get very excited to he knew that we were going to go to the next one, right? We'd get the W's going, not finish all 5. And then he'd be like the E. He would be wanting to get the next one. So I think those were some of the big changes, at least fine motor wise or ADL wise. And then Jessica also had expressed the getting dressed kind of thing a little more the second summer. And so we progressed to working on shorts, or we were more working on shorts because I think pants was the issue of balance. Even just getting pants on shorts were a little bit easier. So kind of like even that, incorporating some more ADLs. And I have to just add to Jessica's comment about speech. I just grabbed his pre-LSVT loud sounds and his post from Jody. And pre was more of good, which he was saying goo, right? Goo or guh. And then he was saying mama. I at least had that down initially, and on. And then by the time he was done, he was saying ba or boo for B. And then P for, he was trying to say pop. And then hot, he was saying ot. And then Scar, their dog's name, who was saying ga, right? Trying to say Scar. He was making the the blinker noise on his way to therapies, the blinker noise in the car, and beep. So there was a lot that I feel like emerged, even just in my loud sessions with voice. Some of these were in my sessions or reported by Jessica, and then in speech occasionally too. But a little bit of hit or miss. Speech was definitely harder, but still amazing stuff.
That's great. I love, it sounds like he has made such great progress. And this kind of, you've addressed this a little bit, so maybe you don't need to go into it much more, but since he did do 2 summers of it, and this could be to either one of you, what do you think it was to go through this for 2 summers instead of just one, that maybe you wouldn't have gotten out of him from just doing a single course of treatment, that doing 2 courses of treatment allowed you to do? I know you were touching on, you were able to progress more in the stuff he used in school and things like that. Is there anything else to add to that idea?
I think I was kind of looking forward to him doing it this summer, and that didn't work out, which is fine. But he learned so much over this school year, just being in school, doing their daily routines, that I was like, if we could pick just 2 or 3 things, especially speech-wise, speech has come a long way. He got a speech device. He's been using a ton of signs, but his ability to mimic sounds and trying to say words and stuff has come such a long way that I was like, this is the summer. If we have Big and Loud, he's going to just blow speech out of the water doing that every single day. And movement wise, we do a lot of movement things here, but he's been really trying to run. And so getting him to functionally, part of his problem is he leans forward, he's looking down, he's looking up, just get some of those things together, but working on just those things every day versus us doing it randomly or the once a week that he still does outpatient therapy once a week. But just getting those things repetition wise in every day, I think we would have seen things that would have been, even the gains we saw the last 2 years would have been small compared to what I think would have seen this summer, just based on how much he learned this school year.
So I like that. So you're building that year over year, just compounding those gains then. Well, and then Erica, so I know you're transitioning to having the pediatric team do that LSVT BIG with kids, and that's kind of happening this summer. So as you're introducing this concept to the LSVT BIG and LSVT Loud programming to your therapy teams, what opportunities, I guess, are you excited to see, and what takeaways do you hope that they'll bring to their own clinics? And maybe you can address a little more about what that transition looks like and what you're doing for the programming.
So basically what I'm doing right now is I've already created a general presentation, more of an in-service based educational, drumming up interest, luncheon service, which I'll be doing actually this week. So really what I want to instill in the therapists is the benefit of, as Jessica has also stated, traditional therapy is great, but what can we really gain from an intensive is so incredible. I can even feel the excitement in Jessica's voice in thinking about what we could achieve this summer still with Wes, learning what he already learned and what he has gained since the last time and continuing to build on that. And so I want to really get that same excitement I felt when I took the LSVT BIG course and was certified myself. I wanted to treat everyone I knew that had Parkinson's with LSVT BIG. And I feel like the pediatric therapists just have a different toolkit that I helped Wes, and I believe that Wes seeing me, and I hope Jessica agrees, and I believe that she does with our communications. But I feel like even though I'm an adult therapist, Wes did make gains with me, but I feel like it could be exponentially even better with someone that really understands pediatrics even more than I do. But what's cool about that, Beth, and I also think about this too, is like LSVT BIG is a set of concepts. And I applied those concepts that I already knew to a kid, and it worked. And it's just so exciting. So I want to instill that in these therapists, that this can really work. And I hope to do that with some befores and afters. Jessica has also given me some videos of Wes. I have, as she mentioned, her cousin's child. I have some before and afters of those. really to bring that all together for my colleagues to be able to see that. Also, what we do, so the tricky thing with time, as Jessica mentioned, maybe there could be adjustments of times, and I think the pediatric therapist might have a little more ability to do this. But my colleague and I have 9 to 11 blocked every single day for LSVT, because if you don't have your schedule blocked, it's very hard to fit someone in 4 times a week for 4 weeks. And so we have these blocks throughout the year where we have that. And as people are interested, or as we evaluate them, or they want to come back for tune-ups, we have a place where they can fit in our schedule. And so I'd like to share with those therapists as well how they could maybe make that work in their clinics to fill their schedules with those patients. And then obviously getting referrals. I've been trying to drum up referrals, but I think that there's more to be done there. We really can garner some interest there, I think, not just for kiddos with Down syndrome, but cerebral palsy. I saw the kiddo with ataxia. So I do think there's a lot more growth to be had there too, which I'm hoping that that's an interest of these clinics as well, to drum up interest in these intensives and then develop some sort of tracking where you see them again. So Wes would be scheduled every summer with a clinic, or however that would work. We've already tried. So hopefully that will go over really well.
Wow, it sounds amazing what you're doing with the pediatric programming. It sounds like you're going to get invited to the podcast again in the future so we can hear how well it has occurred now that you've helped transition all these pediatric therapists to be able to be doing LSVT Big and LSVT Loud with kids. So it's awesome. Thank you for your work there.
I think the one thing for me also that made this kind of work in my mind is that we started when Wes was 4. So like when our doctor messaged me, she was like, he literally would be the youngest person that's ever done this. And so for me as a teacher, I was like, what if he's so young? We have this data that he did it this summer, and then he does it the next summer, and then he does it the next summer. And we just have all of this information that comes in on him doing this year after year and how much it helps as he grows, because he's going to get used to the program. He's going to understand it better. So when my cousin, when her daughter did it, it was her first year, but she's 10. And so her coming into it, her perspective is different. She's used to the smaller therapy sessions, and it might not have looked what Wesley's could look like when he's 10 because he's so used to it, and he might, you know what I mean? The consistency of going all these summers could be beneficial, where like if somebody else is starting and they're 10, they don't have all that backstory of having done this for so long.
That's a great point. I can see how you had such a good partnership with Erica, just the way that you think things through with your knowledge as a teacher too. So that's really cool that you had that foresight as you were going into it also. And I wanted to ask you, Jessica, for families who may be listening who have children with Down syndrome, but maybe they're unsure about taking the next step with LSVT Big or LSVT Loud, what encouragement would you share with them?
It might be hard schedule-wise, but if you can make it work, so I think there might have been a day or two where my parents or Joe's parents took Wesley. If you can make it work in your schedule, the therapists work with you and create these goals. And so they're really like what you want it to be. If I had said to Erica, no, we don't need to work on any of those small fine motor things, then she would have been like, yeah, fine, we don't have to do any of those things. What do you want to work on? Oh, here he comes. Then going and at least checking it out, sitting down with a therapist and with the speech therapist and figuring out if this could work, or even if it's adaptable to make it somehow work for your situation. I think that would be my biggest thing. Don't say no. Just say yes to sitting down and talking about it.
I love that. Yes, even just being open to it. It sounds like the star is nearby. Oh, there he is. Hi, Wes.
Can you say hi? Don't touch buttons.
I have Erica's here.
Wes.
Wave hi.
Good to see you.
No. Oh, there we go. We're waving.
Oh, well, great. Well, I'm glad he was able to get in there for a little bit. And before I wind down everything, I wanted to see if you had any last words, either Jessica or Erica, before we close out today. Or Wesley. Yes, you too.
Go for it. Therapy. They told us when he was born that you can start therapy on and off. You can stop it. You can keep going. You do what fits your lifestyle. And so I think for us, trying to get him into anything and everything that could help him it was our goal, and we tried it, and I liked it. And I think that it benefited our family in ways that we want to keep going with it. So
great. Well, thank you for sharing that.
I would just say, Beth, that I'm hoping any therapist that's listening right now can see how cute this little guy is. And come on, right? Just do it. Like Jessica said, do it. Get trained. Help kiddos, help adults, whoever is your specialty. But it's so great to be able to have the skill of LSVT BIG. And it's amazing. Wesley, you're amazing.
Yes. Well, great. I will just do my final credits to make sure we give credit where it's due. Although I'm sure people would rather see him on the screen than me. But I'll just go through these because we do have a lot of people that support us. So we want to make sure we thank them. So a big thank you to our guests today. So we have Jessica Czajka-Glisch. So thank you for joining us. And then also Erica Vitek. So thank you for doing this topic with us. It's a first for us on this podcast. So it's really neat to have you both here. And then I want to just let viewers know about our theme song. So you hear it at the beginning and end of the episode, Think Loud for Parkinson's by Kindred Spirit and Leo Sayer. It was a song and video inspired by LSVT Loud speech treatment, and it was developed to raise awareness for Parkinson's worldwide. So it's available for download and streaming on all major music platforms, and proceeds benefit the UK charity Cure Parkinson's. And I'll put a link to that video in the show notes under the podcast. I also want to thank our production team, CS Design Studios. They do all the behind the scenes work to make the podcast possible. And then if you're interested in learning more about LSVT Loud speech therapy or LSVT BIG physical or occupational therapy, or if you want to locate therapists in your area, you can visit our website at lsvtglobal.com. And then I'd encourage you to click subscribe wherever you get your podcast so that you never miss an episode. And we look forward to thinking big and loud with you again next time. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.